button
Are
is
we here?
depressed.
What's up, everybody? We made it. Also, I bought a longer cable so I can I have more mobility. Oh, wait, no, I forgot. My headphones don't have the mobility, so I don't have more mobility. But I
You
almost did.
fixed it halfway.
That's a lot of problems. You think you solve them, and then you just move the bottleneck to a different part, which is good. I mean, like that's still improvement.
Yes. Well, don't be like me and have a million cables, because what ends up happening is your camera dies and you don't even know which end is dead.
Do you get zip? Do you get good cable management?
I think that's where I screwed up, because maybe this happened because I had I got these cable wraps,
Yeah.
and then I wrapped them up a few days ago, and I didn't. Of course, I'm stupid. I didn't test it, so
What do
I
you
think
mean?
that might have broke something.
Oh,
Though
you just wrapped. You didn't turn everything on and run through the paces.
no, because I thought I hardly moved anything. Like I moved everything by 2 inches, to wrap it, right? But now the camera power supply is dead because it's just not
Woof.
turning on at all and
Hmm.
stuck in a position.
I wonder if there's something that got unplugged a little bit.
Yeah, so so I traced back all the power cables and whatever, but it's now I have to do every single one point
Yeah,
to be like, what's broken? But
dude,
anyway.
that's hard. I realized. So I have a monitor from 8 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an ultra wide, and I really like it. But it's I realized that the connection ports are really, really fragile, and I realized
Mm-hmm.
this because I was watching something, and then I accidentally bumped into the table because I do
Mm-hmm.
have the headphone extender at my house,
Mm-hmm.
and when I bumped it, everything shut off, and I was like, and then I went in the back and played with it. So that stuff kind of sucks.
Yeah, I bet that's what happened. But this is an example where you're so understanding, and then that's how we all started in our partnership together.
That's true. We're both pretty nice
For the most part.
for the most part.
For the most part.
I
We're here
mean,
to talk about the 20%. Actually,
yeah,
no, it's not 20%. Hopefully, 10%,
yeah.
5%.
I don't know. I don't even think the. I'm trying to think. I don't think we've ever been explicitly mean. I think we've been careless, or I've been careless. I can't think of any times when you've been careless.
I've been careless in response to you being careless,
Yeah, that's true.
which is I'm like, but that just doesn't justify it. But we should give some context to the folks joining us today.
Yeah, go for it. I mean,
Mm.
I honestly, I know we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about, but I don't really know what we're going to talk about.
Oh, me neither. Hi, GM Priyanka.
What's up, Priyanka?
Yeah. Oh gosh. So I think we had this on the docket for a while, right? We joked, which I still don't know whether it's appropriate to joke, the couples therapy show, where which no one talks about, or very few people have talked about. It's if you do work with someone on something creative, then you end up having a special partnership of sorts, right? Because
Yeah.
and the thing is, if you have that you're making a little bit of money from it, in a way you're as intimate as your spouse, because now you have a joint account.
Yeah.
or
To
or a
clarify,
shared.
Krista and I are both married to other people.
Yes. That is a good point to clarify. But yeah, you end up having a joint account with a shared private key. It's sort of quite a big deal, right? And
a lot of trust is the point.
yes. And the thing is, it's I what I see is that people usually go to extremes, right? It's either you go the super formal, you have a contract and you say what each person's gonna do, or you do it on a handshake. And
Yes.
the idea of the handshake is that even if you have written down every single thing on a piece of paper and both sign on DocuSign, it's not actually enforceable unless someone's willing to pay for lawyer fees. So in a way, it's farcical. But I think this is the time where I'm like we kind of wrote some things down, but there are some things where you don't know what you're agreeing to until you get to certain points. And then each person will have their own assumptions about what that means. And if you don't check in once in a while, it starts to drift. And then when the other person doesn't realize it, then they feel like their tail got stepped on.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think we're both in mid fafoing about OK Banger,
Mm-hmm.
and like and both of us aren't really lawyer people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a time and a place for that. I think both of us just like we're looking for something where we could like trust and build enough trust with somebody else so we can mostly just roll with it. But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you don't need to maintain and be deliberate about it, which is kind of like what we figured out I don't know, in the past like 2-ish weeks, because like that was like the first big time where we kind of like stepped away from OK Banger since we started in
Mm-hmm.
like August, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we took like a Christmas / holiday break.
What's up, Miriam?
GM.
Yeah,
Or I remember
the
the one time people did GMMM. Oh, hi, dirty hippie.
gem.
I just realized that people think that I'm just calling someone dirty hippie, but I'm like, that's
No, that's his name.
username. Yeah. Or the dirt hippie. Am I just like calling him dirty for no reason?
I think it is dirt hippie, but I also always in my head go dirty hippie.
Yeah. So we kind of like progressed. We had a honeymoon period where everything went really well. But I think like, it's just like any sort of partnership is when things start to like, go a little unexpectedly. That's when like the little cracks are revealed, right? So like if things are going well, then like, then nothing's a problem. But then as we're getting through our first like or sophomoric challenges as a creator,
Yeah.
that's where things get hard.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two things that are always happening. Oh my God. Sorry. Microsoft Edge is just trying to kill me right now.
Microsoft Edge? Why are you using Microsoft Edge?
I'm not. Just Windows tries to shove it in your face, because if you're not vehemently against it and exit out and turn off notifications, it's just going to try to push notification you, like it's trying to bully you into submission, really, because most people don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Most normal people. But anyway, so there's two things always happening in every organizational context, and we've talked about this before. I think we're both org design nerds in our own way. Like mine from the army, you from healthcare land, healthcare pharma land, and there's always change, and there's always change in the thing that you're working on, like within the team, and then there's always change outside of the team, and those two sets of changes like may or may not be related to each other, but they're always both happening, and sometimes they like influence the situation that you're dealing with within the team in ways that you don't even realize until you're like actively dealing with them, which is, I think, basically what's happened to both of us over the past 4 months.
Right. Oh, thanks so much, Isis. I love the number of hearts.
Dirt Hippie says I deserve it for using Windows.
I actually thank you for saying it, because I thought it.
Look, I'm sorry.
At the snark of like someone built an expensive computer but did not uninstall Microsoft Edge. Or you can't do it or something? Is that
like
how it works?
You can't really get rid of the notifications for it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeesh. Okay. So I think like that's where like at the end of the year we were like, oh, let's like, regroup or whatever and talk about strategy. I think in the end we didn't do it because we were like, okay, let's let it marinate.
Yeah, we were tired.
Yeah, we were tired. But then like at the beginning of the year, like in Circle Back season, Kristen circled back and was like, hey, what are we doing?
and I wasn't ready to circle back, is the short of it.
Yeah. And I think the other like tricky part is like this is not our only job, right? I think if this was our only job, it would have been a bit more clear. But like our agreement from the get-go has been like we, our actual jobs have higher priority.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was leaving alone because I know you had like a lot to do with Seymour stuff. But then it actually all like transpired into last week, as many of you have joined the co-working session. That's where things went awry.
Yeah, it was really innocuous, and somehow a thing that we both agreed we should do turned into like, I don't know, a flashpoint.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that a word in the private sector, flashpoint?
It's not seen as a negative thing, Like people like to
Oh,
use it as a positive word, which is kind of like messed up, actually, if you really think
like
about it.
like the flashpoint is either literally like the flash of a muzzle in my brain, or it's like when a crowd, like the thing that causes a crowd to start going, like turn into a mob.
Oh, it's also the name of an ad agency.
Oh, that's funny.
in,
They
in the industry. So, so the like marketing people see it as like, oh yes, a flashpoint is great. That's when the fireworks go off. So therefore, you want flashpoints. But anyway, so
there's
again,
a
like the
lizard
reason why
person
I'm kind of like
conspiracy in there.
telling it like
Yeah.
in a non-straightforward way is because the context of it also about co-working is that you might have been throwing it around. In fact, I was the one who suggested co-working from way
Yes.
back when.
Yes.
And I went through the motion of setting it up, like, and I thought that we were going to do it in a way where it's closer to a Zoom-like situation.
Yeah, like very managed, very
Mhm,
like a structured thing based off of a mental model of I believe like stuff that you've like either done or ran before, right?
mhm,
Yeah.
exactly. But then you thought that it should be, like, closer to, like a
Low
stream. Yeah,
lowest effort, yeah.
low-key kinda thing, which, by the way, has, like, pros and cons on both sides.
Right.
And I often find myself liking to join, like, streams where I'm just watching someone co-work, so I don't have the pressure of being on
Yeah.
screen. Um, which is why you can see that actually Cameron ends up hosting all of them, and I join and yap in the chat. But then, like, I start setting it up, but then you told me, "Kristen, you're doing" no, I kinda think the phrasing was like, "You're as usual, you're doing too much."
Did I say as usual? I really don't think I did because I think that would be shitty. We have the receipts though.
I know we have the
Like
receipts, but I was too lazy to look it up.
let me scroll up to do it. But like the gist of it is there's a context which I'll go into later because I really care about context, and so does Kristen. But I sometimes lean too much into it. But so basically, Kristen was doing all this like perfectly legitimate work for this thing.
Oh, okay, I got it. You said, "Why? You do too much
Yes, yeah,
sometimes."
it was accusatory like that, and it rightfully like it pissed you off. Like
I
the
no, I
actually,
sent an extremely giant, you know how in Telegram when you send only the emoji? Like, and it becomes a giant emoji? So I made sure that the emoji was giant of me feeling sad with a downturned mouth.
yeah, and I immediately felt bad. And we had to like, yeah, okay, banger, like beef slash
I wish we
honestly,
had beef.
like we're kind of annoying
That's
in the
good
sense
content.
that yeah, this was a good mirror to hold up to us because we were
Mhm,
both self-aware enough to realize that, oh, this is like a thing that we need to resolve.
mhm,
And so I don't think either of us got the sensation of like, you don't really feel satisfied when you like yell at somebody else, but there's like a sense of like righteousness in there.
mhm.
I think sometimes in conflicts you're like, no, I'm right here, at least for a little bit until you like have a sense like some distance to reflect and be like, oh no, maybe I was being crappy. I
Mhm.
think we both immediate or like I know I was definitely like, oh no, that was the wrong thing. And I think that also made you not be able to feel righteously like, oh, he was a jerk to me. I don't know. I don't want to put feelings in your brain or like in your mouth. But I don't want to put feelings in your mouth is not the right way to say that, but you know what I
Don't
mean,
put
right?
feelings in my mouth, please.
The but like if I continued to be a jerk, you could have had the like, no, he's being a jerk right now. Fuck that guy or
Mhm, mhm,
screw that guy.
mhm.
Um and
Right, and the context that you don't know, or maybe you kind of know, but didn't know that coincidentally, like, this has been my past flashpoints with previous creative partners.
yeah, and I had no idea about that.
Yeah, so where they would tell me that I'm doing too much when I perceive them as doing too little, or which is not actually the issue. It's almost like I
Mhm.
don't mind, like, however much we do. I just feel a very strong sense of protection kicking in of, like, am
Yeah.
I protecting myself in this situation by, not overdoing things?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's like this interesting in the span of less than a minute. Actually,
Mhm.
I'm looking at the timestamps, and so
Mhm.
this is the conversation. So you start. I was also kind of crappy earlier in the thread too. So
Oh,
it
I
was
already forgot.
yeah. So you schedule an event, but it's an event in like not just this like very low effort YouTube stream. And so I look at it, I'm like, I don't have a mental model for what this is. As
Mhm.
you start messaging, you're explaining like different ways that we could do it. It clicks for me. Oh, this is like a managed, almost like a cohort thing, which I did not want to do, but I had not expressed to you in any way. And then you mentioned Discord, which we had killed. Uh, and then I was like, oh no, this is like has turned from a tangible thing to like a potentially unknown amount of expansion thing in my brain.
Mm. Mhm, mhm.
And so I have a little bit of a fight or flight, but I don't flight, I fight for the most part. And so that,
Yeah, and I actually had no idea that
yeah,
I slowly escalated it. And I
yeah,
think the super ironic part is that historically, I've been the one who's like, "Oh my god, let's not do too much."
yeah,
So
that's
that's
also true.
extra ironic because I'm usually the one walking us back from the ideas.
Yeah, because I mean, because you have the built-in experience defense mechanisms of like things that have tripped you up before.
Exactly, exactly. So I think that's why I feel extra bad because wait, this is exactly what I told you to tell us when
Yeah.
things are expanding too much.
Yeah, but it's very interesting because it like now that I'm looking at it back, it escalates. So you said something at 112. I responded. I thought we killed that also, and then you respond like as I'm typing responses, but I wasn't using punctuation. I wasn't being thoughtful with my word choices. It was just very short. Like I thought we killed that. Why aren't we using YouTube? Why
Mhm.
reinvent the Twitch co-working wheel? Like three very direct, uh, we'll say not soft statements,
Mhm.
uh, that were directly pushing back against what you're saying. And then, had you seen co-working on Twitch before? Because based on the messages, I don't think you had.
I didn't realize how many there were
Oh yeah, it's
until
crazy.
I searched on Twitch. I was like, "Oh man, there's like a bajillion people working quietly by themselves."
Yeah, it was fascinating. I
Yeah,
don't.
so you had a different mental model, right, of what it
Yeah,
could be, and again, in retrospect, yes, I feel like we did the right thing, like, from, to walk it back to this kind of model, because it's
yeah,
more sustainable for us to keep doing it this way.
yeah. Like the outcome definitely makes more sense with what we wanted to do,
Yeah.
but the tension happened because of two things, like two big
Mhm.
things. Like the first one was us not having enough. Well, actually, let me, because I really want to analyze the like 1 minute that like unraveled it all. Because I think you were totally fine with me up until this 1 minute.
1 minute, yeah,
Was
exactly.
of
I think this
complete.
is how a lot of relationships are, right? It's like everything
Yeah,
it takes
yeah,
place over just 1 minute, things crumble.
yeah. I mean, you have like a bandwidth that error correcting happens within, and then when you like
Mhm,
expand outside of it is when like you have a flashpoint. But
mhm.
but so you continue like I put these three kind of like direct things, and then at 116 you I think clock that I like explicitly don't want to do the thing that you've already put in work to make happen.
Mhm.
I go, why, yeah, with like multiple y's at the end of y,
Yeah.
which is rude and like kind of like immature. And then I said, you do too much sometimes, lol.
Which in
Which was
retrospect, super funny. At the time, super upsetting.
yeah. And then you send back a straight frowny face, which you rarely do. So I was
Yeah,
like,
I wanted
oh
to
no.
emphasize how frowny I was.
And then that was meaner than intended. And then I go, sorry, that was meaner and intended. But like, what do we gain for what cost? And related, we just talked about, and then I just go into this whole thing where I'm trying to Like, I know I was kind of a jerk, but also I'm trying to win the discussion, which I don't think was the right thing to do in that moment. I think we could have had a better conversation 30 minutes after that moment, maybe. But anyway, we do end up switching, but I don't know how much of switching to the lower effort version of it, but I don't know how much of that was like, hey, I actually think Cameron is right, or Cameron browbeat me into submission. That actually, I don't know. We haven't talked about that.
Oh, I think because of the timeline of how fast we're setting everything up, I was just kind of like, I'll go with it your way just to take care of it for now.
Like,
But then
disagree and commit.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which I think is better. Like I feel like for two people to work together, it's better to, like, my analogy is like, it doesn't actually matter how fast we're going or even which direction we're going, as long as we're going at the same pace in the same direction, we will get there. And I think like this was the moment where I was like, wait a minute, are we going in the same pace in the same direction?
Yeah. Like, and which is an interesting discussion in and of itself. Which I mean, we got 40 more minutes of this, so we got plenty of time to talk about it. But so, like, why do you think we got to this point of, hey, this was a point of contention? Like, this was straight up, like, I think a week ago, where we were like, not at each other's throats, because we were both self-aware enough to be like, hey, we acknowledge that something is happening. It's not like a toxic relationship where the two people are just being crappy to each other.
Right, right. I think it's the again, the greater context, right? Which you also didn't know, which is like, I'm trying to organize the rest of my life. And it's like, to me, I have these like assumptions about the amount of energy I'm devoting to something, right? And so I had like allocated a much larger bank of energy towards this show, like, which again, it's all like, and now that I think back on it, I'm like, well, like, what was it actually based on? It's very like fluffy and like, who knows what's going to actually happen. But I think that made me worried that, like, oh no, I think this is a much bigger deal than Cameron is. Therefore, I'm going to get screwed because I'm not going to plan my life well, because I've over devoted the amount of, and the ROI of this is not going to be as high as I hope it to be. Therefore, I'm panicking.
So, okay. So do you want to go into the internal context of like the show and then the external context of our lives? Because like, I mean, to the extent that like we want to share, because like I think I'm pretty good with sharing most of my external context that led up to my half of it.
Well, I mean, like, practically speaking, it comes down to like money, right? Like, this is the kind of thing that you have to grind at it for like a decade before any potential money situation can show up. And like, it's a very, like, speaking of the deferred marshmallow, this is the most deferred marshmallow that could possibly be. There might be no marshmallow at all at the end.
Facts.
So whereas, the rest of life, like, if things are smooth sailing, I wouldn't panic as much, right? And you didn't know that I was actually at this point of like being rocky in the rest of my life and trying to figure out what to do. And it's sort of like, do I like make a leap of faith, which, I'm gonna make today, like, sorry, I can't share very much. This is all client work stuff, but it's sort of like I'm trying to pitch for something bigger, but that would mean that this has to be a little smaller because, that's going to take up more time. So when I was constructing this pitch originally, I had made it a little smaller because I thought, oh, like, this is going to take more and more time and more like effort. But just that moment of you telling me that I'm doing too much made me question that I've completely miscalibrated and I'm going to screw up my life.
Yeah, and for anyone that stumbles across this video, we're in month 5 of running this show. This is, I think, our 33rd episode. We've been streaming twice a week, basically, for the past 5 months. Subscriber growth was like good. Now it's kind of leveled off, and we're trying to figure out the way forward for the show, because we both really enjoy talking about this, like just having our show, talking about different concepts that are important to people that like do stuff on the internet and creative work in general. But also, as Kristen points out, and this is super common for everybody that wants to do creative stuff, is like, you got to make money. Like, you can't you can't eat off of 400 subscribers on YouTube. You just can't. And so we got to like figure out, I mean, not unless you're like a real estate agent, right? But
yeah, or you have one of those like straight to your actual professional job where you charge many dollars an hour kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, we ain't there. But so that's like the show internal context.
Or,
like
or
we
I don't
love
think it's
doing
that
it.
we ain't there is not correct. We don't want to do it that way.
Yeah, that's also true. Like we don't. I'm not gonna say everybody that does that is a grift, but there's a too high a percentage of people that are exploiting whatever micro audience they build, and that's just not what we want to do. Period.
So with that said, like that's why this became a flashpoint of doing too much or whatever.
Yeah.
And like because like I feel like this again, it's one of those things where if everyone around you an asshole, maybe you're the asshole. Like I've got this feeling of like, this situation seems to have come up for me multiple times.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so therefore, is it me? So I think like that's where I also was really proud of myself because I did not immediately like, completely fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
Which is what
like,
I had done in the past. So I was like, I just like end it.
Because which I really appreciate. That would have been devastating.
Yeah. But I think you and I also have a talk about ending things.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if we are like, devoting, to this partnership, I knew it's like, I need to like recalibrate with you. And I think like that's where my memory starts to go away because I don't remember what we did next.
Okay. So
and magically things became better, but I forgot how.
But before we roll into what we did next, I think it's also important to bring in some other external things that I think are pretty relevant to other people that they might not think about in team contexts. All right. So we were talking about, hey, we know like we both have kind of a pressure. The show doesn't make us money. So we need other things in our lives to do. Some of the other things in our lives that we do are kind of like content related. Some of the other things are like more traditional job related. And obviously we have equipment issues, aka the money issues. But we have partners and families. And we also just kind of have like our own stuff that we're, the baggage of life that we're dealing with. And so on my side, I'm not going to speak for you. You share whatever you want. Over the Christmas holiday, I hurt my back somehow. I have a history of back injury. Like as I was going into the military, obviously the Army hasn't helped back issues in general, but I have not just like physical back issues. I also have a bunch of mental baggage with back issues. Because at its core, it really scares me. Because my first big back injury, I was like waylaid in bed for like a week on muscle relaxers. And so like, I know what that's like. I had a deep-seated fear while I was in the Army that I was going to lose my career at any moment if I fell down the wrong hill, which is like a very real constant stressor for people that have physical jobs. Because if you get hurt in the Army, you get medically separated. You not only might have a long-term injury, you also just might lose your job and livelihood. And like, depending on the severity, you get some amount of pension, medical pension, but it just kind of depends. Like if you have the wrong kind of disability, you don't get paid that much when you get out. So there's a lot of like 10, 20% disability veterans out there that have a permanent injury, but it's not severe enough to get that like a living stipend off of. And so there's like some mental baggage there, but also one of the things that, and we talked about this, one of the things that helps me emotionally regulate in my life is working out. It's a thing that like it's a meditation period for me. It's like a physical get out of your head kind of thing for me. And so when I hurt my back, like I know what I need to do to resolve it. And it mostly involves like rest and stretching and not doing the thing that helps me emotionally regulate. And this isn't like an excuse or anything like that. It's just the context that I was going into the month of January in, where I thought I was going to hit the ground running with like my physical training, because I have like ambitious goals for the year. But January has had to turn into a rehab month, which was like mentally a bummer. It was a big old bummer. And so since that part of me, and then it also has like the downstream effects of like sitting in a chair for a long time right now kind of sucks. It always sucks, but it like sucks more. And so I also in my head started like dialing back all of the other things that I was doing so as not to put mental stress onto the physical systems, because that also
Mhm.
matters. Like you
Mhm.
shouldn't lift heavy while you're like anxious about a big test or something like that, or a job
Right,
interview,
right.
because there's a relationship there.
Yep.
And so it was the perfect storm of big personal life changes, big injury related things, always uncertainty in the new year on whether you're going to be able to hit your goals. Seymour, the startup, is not crushing it. Like I'm pretty optimistic about the next few months of what we're about to launch, but it is not cash flow positive, I'll say that. And you have your own set of things that you're dealing with that too.
Exactly. And like recalling the last episode, I think the super ironic thing is that you had brought up that they were grumpy, really cranky. Remember this? And then I
Yeah.
was like, it's okay. I will not be affected by your crankiness. And then this follow-up happened. So I was also reflecting, it's like, oh right. I
It's
totally forgot about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Like not to toot our own horns, but we're both pretty like emotionally mature. Like we make it a
Questioning that, but yeah.
well, I mean, we both like make it a point to be like to reflect, to have self-awareness, to have empathy, like to cultivate empathy and try to think about other people. And do a show twice a week where we like talk that book all the time.
Mhm.
Like and I'll leave it to other people to judge whether we succeed at that. But the point is, like, we're trying, and even when you're trying like pretty hard to do all that, you can like you'll still get these like flashpoint
Mhm.
moments
Mhm.
where you can probably handle one thing going wrong, you can probably handle
Mhm.
two, but like 3, 4, 5 things going wrong at the same time, like it
Mhm.
just like stuff just gets crappy sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm gonna escalate the awkwardness, but I'm gonna say two things so they
Let's
kind of
do
like
it.
pair each other out. I think
Yeah.
the other awkwardness is I perceive you to be like pretty close to financially independent. So
uh
I think that
yeah.
you may not have realized how much I'm banking on the show.
Mm,
But on
yeah.
the other hand, like I want to pair this with, on the other hand, you have always encouraged me to work on my own stuff
Yes.
from the very get go. So it's sort of like that was also the point of like, oh my gosh, is Cameron like, has he forgotten what it's like to have to work for money?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
the fuller context there for anyone interested is that like I co-founded a startup that sold a few years ago, and like I don't need cash flow for the next few years if I don't want to, but it's not like I'm set for the rest of my life.
Well, you could be,
Well,
but you're gonna have
yeah,
to live in
in
Asia.
Kansas, yeah,
Yeah,
or
or
Asia,
someplace like yeah,
like
affordable.
yeah. And so like that, it's just not gonna happen. Maryam, thanks for the comment. We appreciate that you appreciate what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Because this is weird. This is more of a soul bearing episode than we normally do. Like we're pretty open, but like this is pretty raw because like we're still
Mhm.
figuring this out.
Right. And the reason why I really wanted to share was because like I only know of one other creative partner situation that has committed for multiple years.
Mm,
And they did
like
like a podcast. So it's Tashin Fogelman and Mary.
okay,
And they did a podcast talking about this. And they also talk about like the dynamic of like working with the other person and misunderstandings and all
yeah,
of that. So and I don't really see this kind of content online.
yeah, and I mean, it's pretty obvious why, because it kind of sucks to talk about, because like I look like a jerk at parts, and like you feel
Also look like a jerk. What is the female equivalent of a jerk? B
yeah,
word.
the the side note, I think this is an interesting side note. I had a really good conversation a decade ago with a guy in the army where I had to explain to him that there's not a male counterpart of like calling someone like like a bitch, and like it's a thing that you can have in your pocket
Mhm.
that like is people are okay with it being said enough, but it has like an impact in a way that is asymmetric. And it was a fascinating conversation that like I really got this guy to consider, oh, there's no casual insult way to refer to a dude that has like the same kind of connotation that is as impactful as that. And he's like, oh, maybe that does influence how I have that conversation sometimes. Anyway, sorry, completely.
I'm so confused. Are you saying that there's no word as bad or there's no word that's as good?
It's not good or bad. It's just like a tool. It's like a weapon. Like the ability for someone to be like, oh, they're being a bitch. Like that kind of offhand insult doesn't really work the same way. Like you can kind of call men like, P word, but like it doesn't have the same connotation. And as a result, there's like an asymmetry in conversational warfare that, we were in the Army, so we talked about war kind of stuff or conflict. And that clicks something in his brain a little bit. But I don't think that you're being that, by the way.
Oh.
That's very rarely my default. I think it was much. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead first.
Oh no, I think it was like, looking back on it, I honestly was kind of being a bit of a dick. There was context around it for sure. And I also think you were like, how would I describe it? Like,
I feel like to be honest, I don't think you were being a dick. It's just that because now I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, that's really funny. But like, it's just you didn't
feel
know
funny.
that at the time I was being particularly sensitive.
Yeah.
Too.
I mean, you had a context that made it rational to act that way.
I would actually, I questioned my rationality at that moment, but I think it like uncovered. It's never like the thing, right? It's always like you get tail stepped on, and then you open the box, and you're like, "What's in the box?" And then you discover all these like inner resentment that's related. Oops, I'm spitting on myself. That's related to that same resentment.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I say this a lot, but it's not an excuse; it's a reason. Like for me, the existence of reasons is really important, because like if there is a chain of events that leads to something, I can like understand it. Like that's why I talk about context all the time. If there's a chain of events that helps me understand like why a series of things happened, most of the time I can like accept that reality. Where I like my brain like twitches is when like it's a true no rational like flow at all, like because emotions feed into rationality, right? Like the emotion might be an irrational response because it's like a chemical signal, right? Like you're scared of the dark or whatever, but the actions that you take as a result of that emotion are supremely rational, arguably the most rational, right? Because you have the chemical and you're responding to it.
Right. And in response, so at first I like just backed out and you did it the way that you suggested, right? But then later on I came back and doubled down. I'm like, here I have my list of complaints about you.
Okay.
And I related.
Okay, so I'll disagree though.
That's what I added gasoline to the fire.
No, first of all, I asked you to be super honest, right? Like
Oh, I guess you did, but in my mind, I already forgot that was a request.
Yeah, because you're looking at yourself through a critical lens. Like you have we both kind of.
I feel like it's one of those things where I feel self-conscious because what happened is I don't think I was consciously resentful at all.
Yeah.
Because I've just been kind of like letting things slide.
Yeah, you're in
a
a loop.
moment you were like, be honest. And then I started inventorizing. It's like, well, you didn't do X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't follow up with you because I didn't want to be a naggy project manager. Like, I think like that's the hellhole I don't want us to be in, right? Of being project managing each other.
Yeah,
and what
for sure.
really stood out to me was like you, after like I had like triggered you a little bit, was saying that I didn't sign up for the show to be like another not job, but you had a very poetic way of saying like someone else telling you what to do.
All right. So there's a couple things that happened in the aftermath, because like we kind of had a conversation over the next few hours. I know. So very, very quickly, I'm going to see how quickly, but I pushed to get us on a call, and I firmly recommend this for most people. Very rarely does conflict resolution happen via text, like very rarely.
Right.
Most
Whereas
people,
I was actually pushing for us to talk about this over text because I was like,
yeah,
I knew that I wasn't gonna be as clear in video, especially when I was feeling emotional. So I was like, I know I would rather this be in text for
yeah,
now.
yeah, and like I didn't let this show. That drives me crazy. I like I know like we talked about it and we know why that's something that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the point of this
You
is to
hate
have
it.
what's the point of this is to have a high enough trust that even though we know there are like emotions involved with it, tail stepped on,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, there's enough trust in the conversation that we can be in the more kind of like vulnerable conversational medium, because for me that's the highest signal one. Because when I'm looking at text, if I don't have like a face and the like emotions that are happening as a result of it, I can't put the sentence into its appropriate context. Because like
There's a
I'm
Key and
not.
Peele skit about this,
Is
actually.
there? I
Yeah.
please send it to me.
Oh.
Like the point of it for me is not to be like, oh, there's a tone with it and like they're angry with me. It's to be like,
Mhm.
oh, there's an emotion that is resulting in a tone, and I know Kristen likes me regardless, right? So it's like, unless
Well, I
I do
was
something
afraid that
that
I
bad.
would show up as being more visibly upset than I actually feel on the inside. So it was a catch-22 for me because it might have the opposite effect at the time.
So I haven't shared this with you.
Mhm.
I know exactly what that feeling is. Like I
Uh,
know what it's like. I was an extremely emotional kid,
mm,
and like very viscerally when I was in, I think, 5th or 6th grade, I got like pants right down to the
mhm,
underwear, and I was like emotionally destabilized for weeks, right?
mhm,
Because it was like a very traumatic thing and very embarrassing as like a 5th grader to, be in
mhm,
your underwear in front of all your peers.
mm,
Um, and like that is one of the things that as a kid I can look back now on and be like, oh, this was like the start of what ultimately turned into kind of like toxic emotional management, which is just like the, hey, stop freaking feeling that thing.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
but it also in a way started the journey of like, oh, you can process emotions too and not have it be just like a turn off, right? There's
mhm.
other ways to process it more productively, but we haven't talked about that. You don't know that. But I know what it's like to be like, hey, I feel a 70%,
Mhm,
but everything around me or the other things in my life are making me come across as like a 80 or
mhm,
90%.
mhm, mhm. Gosh,
It's
I'm so sorry that you were bullied in this way. We should have an episode about that.
on bullying. Oh
Yeah,
man.
I think we'll end up both crying. But I'm very torn sometimes. I'm like, "Oh, this is such an interesting episode," but I'm like, "Would I listen to it?" It's a little triggering. So I
I don't
I
know.
feel like, we need to think about that.
The
Um,
was it okay, so you said I said a thing. I
I had my
within 10
litany of, uh, grumps of
we we micro argued, we debated some specific tactics, like tangible things, and
mhm.
within 10 minutes I asked to get on a video call, and I asked for you to convert the general feeling that you were feeling into tangible things that I could do to help alleviate that feeling. And that
Oh,
didn't.
yeah, and I was like, I wasn't sure how I felt about that, actually.
Yeah, okay, can you explain what your how your head was going, like what was going on in your brain for that?
I was thinking, oh, like Cameron's back. He's in the leadership team leader mode,
Yes.
which wasn't exactly what I needed
Okay.
at the time. But I also understand why you kicked into that mode because that turns it into a quest.
Yep.
Whereas if I just share all my emotions, then you're just like, I don't know what to do with that information.
Yeah.
But then I also didn't know what I want you to do with that information. Even when you say sorry for me to me, I always feel like so awkward because I'm like, I don't want you to feel sorry. That's not the point of this whole thing. Like
Okay.
I don't want to be right or whatever. But it's more like acknowledging that this is an issue.
Okay.
But I don't know what the next actionable step out of it is at that moment at least. I think,
Okay.
yeah. So what you suggested, like, here are all the things that you can do, and you wanted like a checklist, and I was just like, wow, is this like a thing that can be resolved by you doing a checklist of things?
Yeah. Like my question there is like, well, so
He's just so he got annoyed.
well, I mean, the reason, or one of the reasons why I went to that, was the response is, hey, I like, it was basically a sense of, I feel like I'm putting more into this than you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that is a statement to me that at some level has to be able to be quantified, or else like I have to just persuade you into that. I'm like, like in my brain, my options for that are two: either like do a list of things so that you
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm contributing,
Mm-hmm.
or persuade you. And I like, I'm pretty good with words. I can like try to persuade, but like if
Mm-hmm.
I don't have something to measure against, it just feels like I am social engineering is what that feels like to me. Cause like I'm good at that. I've done that before with people, and I like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't solve like the true problem, which is there's like a feeling of
Mm-hmm.
inequality. It like makes you feel like it's solved, I think was where I was going with that. Do you have thoughts on that?
And the context of that is that this has come up before, where you always mention that I want to make sure we're, being equitable and we're
Yes.
both like contributing and stuff. And that always made me feel awkward, actually, because
Okay.
I never feel like, at least until this point, I never felt like you were not contributing enough. In fact, I felt like I was actually always a little behind on doing things, and I drop things all the time too. And
Yeah.
then I was in this moment of like, here's my litany of complaints. Um, but I think I was very careful to say, and also I have dropped things before, so I'm not saying
Yeah.
that you are solely responsible for dropping things. But I started to doubt whether I was supposed to like be on top of you doing things or not.
Yeah. We
And
definitely,
that's
well, so like we definitely through the conversation kind of realized that we hadn't set a standard to hold ourselves and each other to, in terms of
Mhm.
like what we want to consistently happen. We'd kind of like talked about things, but never in a
Mhm.
sense of like, hey, this is a glass ball, this is a rubber ball. That, like these are the things that are fail or no fail.
Right. And then that led to me starting to question. Oh, well, I think you said another thing that was triggering actually at the around this point,
Oh
which
no.
is like, because I have the impression that, again, this is my Asian immigrant upbringing, is like, to succeed, you need to put in the work. Whereas
Yeah.
you started to say that I'm over the point of needing to of like wanting to stress about things to make it work. Which actually I agree with you, but the
Yeah.
timing of you saying that was terrible.
Yeah, no, me pointing out that being stressed about something isn't the same thing as like working on it. Uh,
Mhm.
it wasn't the optimal time to say that for sure.
No, it wasn't. But, because then I started to worry about whether we have the dog in us to make this work. I think like that is the ultimate thing, right? I don't, in a way, I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, these emotional stuff. I was very confident we could figure it out. I
yeah,
just started to have like, flagging confidence about ability to make this show into something successful. Because if we're both two chill guys, like, no offense to chill guys, but it is
yeah,
rarely possible to like chill guy your way into success unless you have extremely good charisma and relationship power, which some people do. But I'm like, I'm those are not my strengths. So I feel like, there's also the context of me seeing that, oh, but I think we have to grind.
yeah.
And I was like, oh no, like the Cameron I know used to be about the grind. That he turned into a into a chill guy in the span of a few months. And I
No,
didn't realize that.
no. Like the thing that I was and still am trying to communicate is like, I've been an insecure overachiever all my life
Mhm.
who was anxious about the test score, or
Mhm.
anxious about the project or whatever.
Right, right. We're both kind of like burnouts in that way. So
Yeah.
I understood why you felt that way.
Yeah. But like the key here is that regardless of the level of anxiety I have about the things that I do,
Mhm.
I show up and I put in the work. like I've looked at things where I've been like, oh, this was a generally fun project to work on, and oh, this was a really stressful things, and I haven't been able to find a material difference in outcomes
Right.
based on the
And
anxiety.
the thing is, the twisted thing is, I wanna be more like that actually. But like when you say that paired with me having a
Yeah,
litany of things you hadn't done, then it
yeah,
comes across as chill guy justifying being chill.
yeah,
So that was tough. But yeah, Dungeon Master, you have it exactly correct. I think like ultimately, it still comes down to that. But I can't be, like judging Cameron for his successes that he's able to use now to, be chill guy.
yeah. The other thing is like taking the like, I mean, we'll TBD on how well we get through this. I think pretty good. Um, we both want this to be like a decade long show. And
Mhm.
so like, but I think we've let the conversation kind of stop after we say that and not be like, hey,
But how?
like the how, and then like what are the on the way things that we like need to achieve along the way, like based
Mhm.
on our expectations of ourselves. And I think specifically we talked about, okay, like 10K subs by the end of the year,
Mhm.
and like the how to get to that level, we also
Mhm.
haven't really decided what that means.
Exactly. And then thank you, John. Thanks for being bullish.
Appreciate it. I'm
Yeah, so
bullish.
I mean,
Okay,
in a way,
banger
we
too.
need to have this conversation because, yeah, if you're gonna run an ultra marathon two-legged race, you better like the
Yeah.
person you're doing it with.
The I've been trying to find the thing that you said that you liked how I described it. Do you remember like what I was talking about? A like roughly, because I want to understand the description of the show that made you feel a type of way, or description of the relationship that made you feel a type of way.
In a positive way or in a negative way?
Both.
Um, to be honest, I again don't really remember, and I'm
Yep.
glad that with the miracle of Telegram, we have all the receipts.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
we
yeah.
really want to, we can go back to it and fathom meeting notes. So I think it was really liberating once I really thought it through because okay, oh, the other thing we didn't bring up is the once a week or twice a week situation.
Yeah, yeah. We're
Oh my
we're
gosh.
we're deep in that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the other reason why I was resentful was because the reason why we have a show twice a week is because Cameron wants it twice a week, and I'm every single time we have our mega, like, action review, whatever, I always say, "I think we should have only show only once a week because we never have time to do all the other things we can do to optimize the show for the audience. We're too busy actually doing the show. We need to have some, like, sharpening the saw sort of activities." But Cameron has insisted on having the show twice a week because
Twofold. A very small part of it is I don't think we're going to replace the showtime with work on the showtime. So that's a small part. The
Mhm.
big part is I just like doing it 2 times a week. I like having the conversation and I like
Like,
us
because
yapping and I like
Cameron likes
talking with the
chatting with
chat.
me. That's the reason. And I've always been like, but like that to me never really like met the goal. But so then I was extra resentful because I felt like we're doing the one thing that I didn't really want us to keep doing because I want us to be doing something else, whatever that something else is. So I
Yeah.
felt like locked into a double commitment situation while also perceiving you as doing half the work. Cause well, oh, and then the other like the triggering thing I brought up was the housewife tasks of hosting a show
Yeah.
because I end up doing a lot of the maintenance tasks, right? Of like posting on the show and like, posting on pods or whatever.
Yeah.
And the very traditional feminine tasks. And then when I tried to give it to you one time, I was like, dang it, it's so awkward.
Yeah.
So it was
To be
like asking
clear,
Cameron to load the dishwasher and me going, this is not done properly. I might as well do it myself.
like
So that was also really
t-
problematic.
to be clear, this isn't a Kristen has to do this. It was a like, hey, let's review and continually review our responsibilities, and that's like how we've communally decided to break some of these down.
Mhm.
But as a result, I was supposed to be doing the clips, which for a good chunk of time I did do really well. And
Mhm.
then, life happened and I've put those out. Like, I
Right.
don't think I've put one out since like beginning of December.
Yeah.
Um,
So I was like, if I'm gonna do the housewife stuff, someone needs to bring home the bacon, or else I'm
yeah.
gonna be really
Which
resentful.
we also identified as kind of an unfair thing too, because when I asked if the clips don't do well, am I failing at that job?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. So that, which I thought was a really great point. Um, and I,
and
I
so
feel like this is such a common like couples argument again,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's
So,
like a bunch of things that I think is like really relatable to anybody that puts stuff on the internet, especially if you're working in a team.
mhm,
And even if you do it exactly right, which we certainly aren't, but even if you do it exactly right, there's no guarantee it's actually going to work, which is always like this like specter or shadow hanging over
mhm.
all of these conversations.
Exactly. So, but I think that it ended up being strategically correct. 'Cause, like, what
Yeah,
happened is, like, where we have, like, both of two of these sort of style of streams per week, like, that locked us into a format, and we couldn't iterate, and now as we're trying to experiment with co-working and, like, gaming and other, like, formats that
yep,
have more flexibility in time when we don't have to, like, coordinate, that allows us to have more, like, shots on goal.
yeah.
So,
Space to
coincidentally, it works out.
Yeah, so Space to Be has the question is like, okay, we had a big, feelings party, big, empathy, comprehension, like, hey, let's understand each other and where we're coming from in our context. Like, but what really also matters is the so what, like, what do we do now? I mean, I think tangibly, we're going down to one stream a week. We're going to keep this Tuesday.
Mhm.
Um, because we've historically had more varied audiences on Tuesday, is I believe the why we decided that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then we're gonna be like we've already started experimenting with the co-working streams. Those are I think it's got to be ad hoc for now. So just like turn on notifications for mine and Kristen's casts for those. And then what else were we changing?
Well, you are doing your awesome, gaming stuff.
Oh yeah, I
I really
started.
love it as an audience member.
Really like. So do you like it because it's me, or do you like it? I've only put out like a video and a short.
I mean, obviously, I like it because it's you, but I I think the narrative arc of watching someone trying to improve at a kind of pointless skill for, like, a year is amusing.
I agree.
Mhm,
I think it's like it's fun for me because it's a box like so okay so the 10-second version of if anybody hasn't seen I'm a 32-year-old grown-ass man. I used to be good at games. Now I suck. uh
mhm.
I like games. I want to be in the old folks home just like ripping falcon punches with Captain Falcon, you know what I mean? And so I'm trying to see how good I can get at FPS games in the next year. I'm sticking with a game called The Finals because it's like an arcade type shooter. It's more skill based versus like loadout or looting or these other mechanics that FPS games have. It's much more about like the core game and the mechanism of playing. And I'm just having fun with it. And I'm gonna be doing like weekly aim trainer like logs, streaming game sessions that I have, and just like trying to not suck. And so
Mhm,
hopefully over the course of the year, I get cracked out of my mind.
mhm,
But so like that's one of the things that we're doing um, different. But with
mhm.
OK Banger, there's also going to be more stuff to come. We just kind of have a crazy January to get our act
Mhm.
together.
Yeah. So, Dirt Hippie asked, "What's the elevator pitch for OK Banger?" Can you repeat it? Because we're actually gonna be on 2 other podcasts this
Jeez.
week. Again,
Yeah, this is good
so much for
practice.
chill guying us out. Like, all the circling back is happening this week.
What's up in Carter's eyes? Thanks for dropping in. The elevator pitch for OK Banger is it's a release valve for creatives. Like
Mm.
we're just gonna talk about the things that we are experiencing as we live, mostly or partially creative lives and careers. And the more creative stuff we do, the more stuff we have to talk about, like
Right, which I
partner
think is
conflict.
fundamentally some of the things we wanna improve about the show, right? It's like, if we keep you can tell even from the episodes that we started getting more and more involuted and more meta. which while amusing to us, we realize can get kind of repetitive. So we
Yeah.
need to go out and do more other things so we can bring something interesting back into the show to talk about.
Yeah, it's the
So that's why
fuel.
like Cameron's finals arc is super interesting to me.
Yeah. Interesting. The dude. Okay. But so I feel like there was something else we were changing. Like so I finally did my 2025 overarching plan.
Oh,
And
nice.
so yeah, and I think all of my goals are SMART goals. I think they're all like attainable but still like stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay Banger is within that framing. So, I think we're having our planning session on Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll talk more about it then. But basically, the stuff that we said that we were going to do, or said that I was going to do in regards to clips, that's going to be coming back out.
Oh,
yeah. Those
I'm
are,
hearing this for the first time, folks.
we do it live here on OK Banger.
Yeah.
But like the important part is like it's not about the goal, it's about the system or the mechanism. If you're an Amazonian, it's about the system you put in place to set the conditions in which it is like attainable to do the things that you need to do as inputs to the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what the month of January is kind of about for me, and I think for us.
Agree. And I think I will need help with that. Like again, the whole irony of this whole situation is that you've actually helped me a lot with planning and goal setting and all of that. So that's why again, it's like so like super ironic and hypocritical for me to be like, you're not doing enough.
I mean, you can have a feeling and it not be true, but it still be a useful thing to like have a
Mhm.
conversation about, because
Right. Ooh, and then that leads us to like even a few days ago, I think I was trying to do something related to the show, and then I told you that from a third person perspective, Kristen right now is still feeling resentful because now I was starting to like question everything I do and being like, well, is this doing too much? Is this doing too much? Um which actually has already extinguished because I already forgot about it. But then, like at the time, I was
Time.
bringing it up to alert you that it was still kind of happening.
Yeah, which is what I asked. That like
Right.
explicit, like what's very useful for me is to understand like non-judgmentally like what the actual feeling and emotional context is, so I can like react to it.
Mhm.
Even if I have the little lizard brain part of me that's like, I'm right. Like I still want to know, because otherwise, like if we get together and the whole thing is us lying to each other about how we're like feeling and we like work together with these
Mhm.
blindfolds on, it's just stupid and it's a waste of our time.
Yeah, and you said something about how like creative partnership is about like radical transparency or something of that sort, which I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Oh,
But I
oh,
think but then I added what no, I don't think it's only about that. I think it's also about like commitment parity, which needs constant adjustment.
yeah. So I think what we were talking about there, and that might be part of what you were talking about, is for me, true partnership is based on an amount of honesty where it's like incomprehensible that you're not telling the other person something that's happening. Like
Mhm.
regardless of ego, regardless of, circumstance, or like how bad it might make you look, it's like the same kind of level of honesty that you I think would want to cultivate in like your children, is kind of like
Mhm.
how I think about it, because that's how I operated in the army. Like I would work with my platoon sergeant, and I would tell him when I screwed up, and he'd come to tell me when he's like, hey sir, we didn't get this thing done, even though it'd make him look bad. Because if either of us was operating without like the full picture of like, no shit, the reality on the ground, like that's
Mhm.
really bad and dangerous.
Right.
And so like that's my foundation for partnerships, and that's what like I want us to cultivate.
I agree. And I think maybe this is getting into next episode or something like that, which I'm traveling, so we'll see how that goes. But
Woo!
I've learned that the webcam works just as well.
Learning
At
every
least I
day.
got that going. Like I think there's also like the stated versus revealed preferences between us.
Yes.
It became more and more apparent, and I think this implicates our planning, because I think like you more than me have an ideal of like we should be doing X, Whereas I'm starting to drift towards, no, we should observe what we had actually done and then plan around what we actually naturally do. Which
Yeah.
ironically, again, is what you said to do in the first place, way back when.
Sometimes I'm right.
Yeah.
But I mean, either way, we've both changed as people in the past 5 months, and our lives have very much changed a lot.
Do you guys all feel this way? I feel like a certain social network evolves so fast, so you end up evolving really fast with it, and it's like my head's on a little like spinner.
But we're trying to establish identities outside of the platforms in which we succeed and fail on. I don't know. I'm hopeful. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hopeful, but I'm not like naive about it. Obviously, you know, the scoreboard, there's a lot of different things to call it, but like, okay, Banger by some metrics is doing fine. By other metrics, it's not doing that great. I still really like doing it, and I think you do too. And that's like a really cool metric to have 5 months into this thing. You know what I mean? And so like,
I agree. And I feel like stop saying that our metrics are not good, because like it is actually really good. And we need the website to be done to demonstrate that it's actually doing great. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thanks for dropping in.
Yeah,
that's a Cameron fumble. But that's okay. Thanks for dropping in, y'all. We'll be back a week from today talking about who knows what.
Yeah.
Hang out.
But then, you know, because we might be randomly on for other things.
Yeah, set cast notifications on for both of us, please, if you want to jump onto the co-working stream. I might do one today, might do one this evening. I don't know. TBD.